Batcho family and how Darwin's foundation pretty much relied on the exclusion of his family. So little May, we're going to give you.
Those. So did you get my message?
I guess I can start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mililma, and I'm a Gulumoerrgin Danggalaba Tiwi woman from Gulumoerrgin, from Darwin, from the Tiwi Islands. My grandfather's country is a place called Ngādidi, which is about 100 kilometres north of a community called Ware in the Northern Territory of Australia. As Kara said, today I'm speaking on the resistance of Danggalaba, of my clan, of my people. This artwork here is done by my Aling, Denise Quoll, of our totem, our clan's totem, the Danggalaba. The Danggalaba people, my people, we are the people of saltwater country, we're the saltwater crocodile people. I was wanting to do a different presentation today, but in the last couple of weeks, the events of what's been happening on my country and at home have really rocked me and devastated me. And I was meant to be talking about the resistance of my people, but I really feel sometimes, and in this particular moment, that our resistance has kind of plateaued or fallen short. And I say that in a really honest way of just what it is to be black fellas in the colony facing really harsh and fascist politicians in the NT at the moment. So, as I've already said, I'm a Danggalaba Gulumoerrgin woman, which means I'm a stranger to this place, to Gulumoerrgin country, and I have been taught by my old people to not speak on other people's countries, and to, if I do speak, to speak softly, as I am just a visitor here. I feel really fortunate to have relationships with Gulumoerrgin people, especially through my Aladik Birrigan, and honoured to meet Pop Martin, Uncle Ray Kelly, and others who have really welcomed me into your community and onto your country. And I really take this as an honour and as a privilege. As a Danggalaba Gulumoerrgin woman, to come to your country and see the things that your people have built is really inspiring for me and my people. And pointing out as well, Clark, my brother boy, and the work that your mum have done with the school, and from the generations before that of the preschool where we have language classes. Those kinds of things don't exist on my country and in my community, and we're a long way from having such systems and places set up. So it's truly motivating and inspiring to see that. And I constantly feel like a stranger on this country and constantly feel like a visitor, but I also feel the warmth of Gulumoerrgin people for being so generous in allowing me to live on your country. The story I'm sharing today all stems from this place here. This is my country. The sun is setting to the west over Twofolla Creek. This place is really significant for us. This is close to a ceremony ground for us, and this is where the Danggalaba people are the governance and leaders of, is this country. Twofolla Creek, I have heard about my entire life. I did grow up off country, on Awabakal country, on Warramai country, but every night my Narang would tell me stories about Twofolla Creek, about this beach, about us fishing here, about collecting Dunijara and Mudla, and then throughout the years we have always come back home and done exactly what my dads did and what their parents did and what their grandparents did before them. The story today is a story of resistance, of fighting, of collapses, of hopes, and of deep, deep patience. At the moment in the Northern Territory, the CLP, the Country Liberal Party, is in power, and Leah Finocchiaro is leading this government with very fascist and apartheid regimes. It's a really scary time to be on my country. We are seeing mounted police in our cities, we're seeing armed officers on buses and in housing complexes and in shopping centres. I'm getting stories all the time about family members who are being killed at the hands of police. Our country is being absolutely decimated by gas and oil companies. And this fight has gone on for a very long time. Darwin was they first made attempts to invade Darwin in the early 1850s and 60s. And the Tiwi and the Larrakia led staunch resistance and wars against the settlers. They failed to actually settle 4 times, and on the 5th time they settled in 1869 without the consent of my family, my people, opposite where this photo is taken, and created the settlement, first of all, of Palmerston, and then it became known as Darwin. This is looking out to the water that we just saw before, and this is actually looking north towards the Tiwi Islands. And my dad and I are here drag net fishing, so that's how we fish. And I remember the first time I did this when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I saw this dark shadow in the water just kind of looming around. I said, "Dad, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's the Danggalaba there. That's our countrymen." And yeah, I was not scared, but that was a huge, 3-meter saltwater crocodile that always hangs around us when we're fishing. And where Dad is there holding the net, there's actually another person out of frame who's holding the pole, which is maybe 2 meters high, where the net reaches up to, and is standing out in the water up to here in croc-infested waters to support the net. And then the kids and the younger ones, we come closer to shore so we can run out quicker if our countryman tries to attack us. But this is the way that we fish, and is the most efficient way as well, because we can collect a lot of fish in one go kind of thing. Yeah. My old people always laugh at people who just fish with one line, because they're like, how are you going to feed people? So this is at Twofolla Creek, and we go back to this place often, and our ceremony sites, there's a women's site to the, how would I describe that? It's to the right of this photo, but southeast of where this photo is taken. There's a men's site kind of directly behind and further north of where this photo is taken. And it's my old Victor, who you will meet later in this presentation, who carried on and passed on these laws and customs to us. And when I talk about laws, I'm saying LAWS. to really give that legitimacy and standing to the structures and systems that we live by. So how did we come to be? This photo here is probably one of the most sacred photos in my family. I'll give you a little bit of time to look at it. But this photo was taken in approximately 1905, and it's a really significant photo because the story from my family is that we actually asked for this photo to be taken of us. And that is extremely rare in this era where, as we know, as Indigenous people, we were researched without our consent a lot of the time, and most of the photographs that were taken of us were either in chains or shackles, and we definitely did not want to be there and have our photo taken. This photo is actually taken at Gulumoerrgin Beach, which is, if you go to Darwin, it's Gulumoerrgin Beach now, down near the Esplanade. And when you go there, actually you can see with that foliage in the background, it still looks the same. I don't know if you can notice, but on the far left there's a man standing and he's wearing a sarong. That is Old Man Batcho, and he's the first person we're going to meet today. So Old Man Batcho is a Macassan man. Now, for those who don't know, my people have been trading with the Macassans for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's actually how we also learnt English before the white people showed up, because of the travel routes that came from China down and Singapore and through Indonesia all the way to us. And this Old Man Batcho, he is a fisherman, he's a seafarer, and he is my dad's great-grandfather. Old Man Batcho was also a Muslim man as well, and as we can see in this photo, that's why he's wearing his headpiece there. It's really interesting too, in this photo he is painted up, and what that means for us is that he was also seen as a Larrakia man, and he had rights within our society. And that was because he had a daughter by one of my great-grandmothers, Blanche, and the daughter is sitting painted up in the middle there, the only child to be painted on her chest, and that is my dad's grandmother, and her name is Day3. So Day3, the daughter of Old Man Batcho and the daughter of Blanche, who is a Gulumoerrgin woman. This photo is actually from a ceremony of hers, and this ceremony is connected to our Yam story, which connects us to the Tiwi Islands. It even connects us to Timor. And we have, my auntie just went over to Timor recently to reconnect that songline and rebuild that connection between Timor, Indonesia, and our country. This photo is really significant because when we look at the faces too, we can also see Tiwi people in this photo. And we know that this means as well that this was the time when Nana Dija was promised to her Tiwi husband, who ended up becoming my grandmother's dad, Muki Muki Purantagamiri. So this ceremony is for Nana Dija, my great-grandmother. And sitting next to her on her right, on our left, is her sister and her brother, Dolly Garinyi and Sam Gunduk. This is Old Man Sam, Darwin, with the Billingitter there, and his wife, Nani Silva. Nani Silva is actually from Croker Island, which is an island to the east between Darwin and Arnhem Land. So that's them two together, and then his brother, Willie Allen here, and his wife. These are their brothers, and then this photo again, Nana Dolly sitting next. These are the two sisters. So on the left we have Nana Dolly Garinyi Batcho, and then on the right we have Day3 Batcho. Her name's Mililma. So I come from all of these women. Nana Dolly, as you can see, she's in uniform here because in the World War I, she was hired as a servant for the soldiers and to manage the army camps. And she got treated really terribly, really awfully there. She was actually cleaned the toilets and always cleaned up after all the Buttergood soldiers. And they nicknamed her Corporal Dolly, but at the time it was a joke and an insult. It has become, in the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, they have this photo of her and they name her Corporal Dolly, but she was named that as a joke and a slight because of the degrading nature of the job she was doing and how they treated her. Nana Dolly didn't end up having any children, but she helped with raising all of my grandparents who were Nana Deeja's children. That's Nana Deeja there. Nana Deeja ended up having 8 children, and her eldest child is my Owl Victor Williams, and then my Amaki Lucy May, which is also my sister's name. Back to okay. This is Old Man Victor Williams, which is my grandmother's oldest brother, and this is him with Nana Dolly. Just wanted to show that photo before I go back. It is Victor Williams. He had a white man as a father, and that was a non-consensual relationship, and he wanted nothing to do with his white dad as he was growing up. And he was raised by the chiefs we've seen in the previous photo, and they are the ones who taught him his knowledge. He was an exceptional man who knew all of our laws and then also learned all of the white people laws. And he was actually the first Aboriginal person in Darwin to have a telephone because of the job that he had, which was managing Bagot community. And he was he taught himself English, he was a brilliant writer, and he ended up paving the way for the land rights movement of Australia and especially in Darwin. I actually sat down with Gary Foley, and he was a huge fan of Owl Victor Williams and had read about him and had always wanted to meet him, and it was very special when I got to meet Gary Foley because we finally drew that connection between the movements that were happening down here and that connection between Gulumoerrgin and Gulumoerrgin. So in 1972, the Gwawa Daraniki, which means our land in my language, was set up, which was an alliance of Larrakia people who were fighting for land rights in Darwin. And they heard that the Queen was coming to Darwin, and they wanted to give her a petition on behalf of all Aboriginal people in Australia. So the Gwawa Daraniki wrote this petition. The British settlers took our land. No treaties were signed with the tribes. Today we are refugees in the country of our ancestors. We live in refugee camps, without land, without employment, without justice. The British Crown signed treaties with the Māoris in New Zealand and the Indians in North America. We appeal to the Queen to help us, the Aboriginal people of Australia. We need land rights and political representation now. And that's a photo of my dad, and I'm wearing the same jumper that he's wearing in that photo. The exact same one. This photo is from 2011 at the archives, and that's Dad looking at the petition. It was 3 meters long, and the signatures on this petition, there were over 1,000 of them collected from all over Australia. And as I was scrolling through the signatures, there were addresses of Mount Isa, there were Victorian postcodes, there were New South Wales addresses, there were a lot from WA, Alice Springs. Like, this petition went all over Australia in the months leading up to when Princess Margaret arrived in Darwin. And there's these incredible thumbprints and signatures and addresses all throughout this 3 meter long document. On the day they were trying to hand this petition to Princess Margaret, they camped out the front of Government House in Darwin. And Government House was actually the first building that the Buttergood built on my country. The oldest building in Darwin, built in 1870, and they camped out the front for 24 hours waiting to hand this petition to the Queen, and she never showed, so they actually posted it to Buckingham Palace. And the envelope and the contents of the petition are all at the National Archives in Canberra now. But I was very excited to see Nana Dolly's signature. It's that last thumb or fingerprint down the bottom, and if you go across it says Dolly Batcho, Darwin, Larrakia. And other communities listed there is Port Keats, Bathurst Island, Oampelly, Bagot, Thursday Island, Goulburn Island. So just this incredible show of solidarity from across the continent as well. I saw some Kellys, actually last names, when I was going through the petition. There might be a few of them around everywhere, but it'll be interesting for all of us here to go through and see if we recognise any of those family names to just show how connected we've been for such a long time. That petition then led to, in 1973, there's a site which my grandfather is named after, which the English name is Emery Point, that we fought for the first land claim, because what happened was the Buttergood wanted to build Parliament House on this particular location in Darwin, and my old people said, no, you can't do that, that's a really sacred ceremony for us. And this led to, and they wanted to build Defence Force housing on that land back in the 70s, and my old people said, you can't do that. And old Victor Williams and his mummy, his gurung, Nana Dolly, they went and visited these lands for the first time after they had been kept off there by the Defence Australia. And as that says there, my auntie had posted this about her dad. And we won the case to protect Emery Point from defence, but as it stands today, the actual specific site of Emery Point is protected, but everywhere around that is still what they call Larrakia barracks. So we can't access that site unless you're in the army. This map here was drawn up in the 70s when these land claim movements began. And Emery Point is down the bottom here. It's kind of highlighted, it says land claim, and it's got the traditional name of the place, Gundu, there. So that's the point where they wanted to build the defence housing, but also where they wanted to build a Parliament House. They couldn't decide. It's a really beautiful site. It's on a cliff, looks out to the whole border. And you can see there Lamoureux, Damara, which is where that photo was taken. That's the first name down the bottom. And as you follow the coastline around, you have Mindulgua, which means shoulder. Damara also means eye, and that's because the Darwin is actually the resting place of Darwin, who's the old man who created that place. And so the shoulders of Darwin and the body parts of Darwin is the body parts of Darwin. And as you go and follow the coastline around, you see where they've drawn that's the Larrakia flag there. And there was a land claim for a place called Cullaluk, and that eventually got won and is still Aboriginal land today. And then if you keep going all the way up to the top, there's Binborough Lee Point, which all these places named were all the places that my old people, when we put forward our own treaty, what we wanted to protect. And the Lee Point fight is actually happening right now, and we're still trying to protect that area. And all of these places have mostly been under occupation from the military, from the Australian Defence Force. So we have been fighting the military occupation of my country ever since they landed in 1869, and because they wanted Darwin as a military base to fight Asia. And obviously we know the White Australia policy and the racism towards our Asian countrymen, who's actually us, because we're all related anyways. It just shows like the role of white supremacy and that settler colonialism in creating these borders that don't actually exist and have never existed. And that we had the petition, and then we had the land claim for Emery Point, and within the same couple of years we then had the first Larrakia Treaty that was developed, 2nd of June 1973 in Kalaloch. The Larrakia Treaty, what we want, special areas, Kalaloch, Bagot, Gundul, Darwin, Manaburin, Bellewen, and Matmalaning. The 14 square mile Larrakia Reserve, $15 million for 100 years of destruction, 660 acres in town to replace land taken from Bagot in 1965, a monument to the tribe and a museum to the land rights war, areas set aside for Aborigines to camp, e.g. Berrimah and Railway Dam, proper recognition of Larrakia language, and advice sought for place names, e.g. Manaburin, not Vernon Island, Bellewen, not Deliciaville, and Kurumbai, not Rapid Creek. Bagot Reserve to be kept for our people for all time. Bombing of Quail Island must stop, and Aborigines to be consulted before any land usage anywhere. The Gulumoerrgin Maan asked the Land Rights Commission to work out a treaty with every tribe. First, every tribe must make a roll with the names approved by the elders. All the tribe must agree to the terms of the treaty before they sign the treaty. The Prime Minister and Governor General must also sign each treaty. If the people of a tribe do not agree with the terms of the treaty, that tribe will go on fighting for the land as we have done for 203 years. If the treaty is signed, at last justice will be done. And the signatures there, that long one in the middle that kind of arches and is cursive, is Bobby's secretary, and he's cousins with Deidre Batcho and Sam Gunduk and Dolly Garinis. They all come from the same old people. It's interesting reading this and knowing that what ended up happening with Bagot was the land of that has dramatically decreased, to I don't know if you can see, but all that crossed hash section near that big blank square, that's all meant to be Bagot, and what it is now is pretty much like a slither of that. So, because most of the white people live down here near Gundul, and then as Darwin expanded, like with most of our towns, they pushed all the black people out. And now most Aboriginal people in Darwin live it's not even on this map, but like further out in a place called Palmerston, and also in town camps that are segregated town camps that we have all through Darwin. What that treaty prompted, nothing came of that treaty in terms of substantial rights for our people, but what did happen was the Northern Land Council was established, and in 1981 they started the Kenby Land Claim, which ended up becoming the longest running land claim in Australia's history. This is a photo of all the white anthropologists and lawyers from the Northern Land Council sitting down. These are all my family members here on the beach. I can see all my aunties sitting there. And over a course of 40 years, my family had to continually give evidence to prove that we were from that place, and that our culture still existed and our laws still existed and our ceremonies were still practiced. I've grown up only hearing about the Kenby Land Claim and kind of waiting for the handing down of this claim. The claim did not get handed down until 2016, and ultimately they found that only 6 people would be recognised as traditional owners, and they were all men. And because Nana Dolly and Nana Deidre were women and they were following the patrilineal line, we didn't get recognised as traditional owners, even though my family provided, and you can go through and read all of the evidence that then the other families were able to use to then get their TO-ship. So in 2016 it was a really heartbreaking time, because ultimately after all the work from Awol Pop Victor, when we did that original land claim for Emery Point to this point, just got like all used and taken, and that was the way that the Buttergood work in always manipulating the story and then giving rights to some people or giving money to some people and not others, thereby causing all that really violent and harsh division in our communities that we're all very familiar with. So the Canby land claim is a really devastating and painful experience for my family and for a lot of the community who literally gave 40 years of our lives, and a lot of our old people died before the handing down even happened, and they had been the ones who provided all of that evidence. Yeah, it was a really devastating time. So it was finalised in 2016, and Malcolm Turnbull handed over all of that highlighted area there in the pink and yellow to the TOs. And then all the other Larrakia people were given like titles as trustees. It got all like legally very specific and convoluted. But ultimately, our family have felt extremely betrayed by that whole process, and everything that laid the foundations, like that petition, the treaty, the land claim at Emery Point, was all done by our family, but then none of us were actually recognised then in the end. In the fight of the Larrakia though, there was really incredible strength. This photo in the top left, you can see the Larrakia flag there, the Aboriginal Embassy. The Larrakia flag then in this edition of Bungie, Bungie was this independent newspaper. By the NT Times in the 70s, it was described as the militant newspaper, but it was just a newspaper for all the blackfellas, and it went across Australia. Again, Gary Foley, he apparently used to wait at the post office to receive his copy so that he could find out what was happening up home. And we used to get, you can read all the copies of Bungie, there's a book about it, but we used to get letters sent into Bungie from all across the world, like people writing in and saying, oh, I'm writing in from like Aotearoa and blah, blah, offering my support and solidarity. So it was this really incredible movement. There was all this, throughout all the editions, they had sections like your rights with police, or letting you know, updating you on like the Gurindji walk-off. Like there was this really incredible grassroots journalism and coverage that Bungie did. And the flag here says, according to Bungie, one end is red for the blood of the old people who were shot. The other end is red for our blood. The middle is the tree growing on the jungle fowl's nest at Cololark. That's the banyan tree. And then it says, long live our brave women. The Larrakia women fight side by side with men for the land. They are brave women and we cannot win without them. We are proud of our brave women. Also at the top it says, we are proud of our language, we are proud of our colour, we love our land. I always loved reading through the Bungie articles. I remember finding them when I was at school and just sitting through and reading them to remind us of like what we're fighting for, and a lot of the asks and calls for in Bungie have remained the same. As devastating as that is, but also it just shows how we are so consistent with our values, and that hasn't changed over time, and I think that really means something, that we're steadfast in what we want for our people. The photo in the middle, the black and white photo, is Ngāki Bobby Secretary raising the Larrakia flag at Cololark. The photo on the left is my Ngāra Tibi Quol at Lee Point. So for the last 10 years, Ngāra has been carrying on the fight of Awol Victor in fighting for Lee Point, which was on that original yellow map that I showed you before. And Narang Tibi has just been so resilient in his fight for our country, and just a couple of months ago he won in the civil tribunal a matter against Defence Housing Australia, which has led to Lee Point being protected for now. So we have managed to halt the destruction of Lee Point again by Defence Housing Australia, and it's been a really incredible time and movement to be a part of. That photo on the left over there is my dad and I. We managed to get this flag spray painted in the city, and it says Walla Darniki, you will know who belongs to the land by looking in their eyes. And that's obviously a direct response to the Canby Land Claim outcome, and that was a famous quote by Nucky Bobby Secretary in commenting on, like, he foresaw the injustice that would happen going through the Canby Land Claim. Just a little bit on Lee Point, and also this map just shows you how much land in Darwin is actually owned by Defence Australia and also the US. So all the purple parts is the land that is currently owned by Defence, and there's a lot more going further south. So, and then the red dots are the Defence bases, and the white dot up in the top corner where the blue part is where they wanted to build Defence housing. That red dot down here, near where it says Darwin, that's Emery Point. And yeah, that white dot is Lee Point up there. And we have just constantly had to fight such mega machines in trying to say to like Defence Australia, how do we say as a tribe of like a couple thousand people that this place is really special to us and really important, when the argument they use is that they're trying to protect the whole country from war with Asia or anywhere else. But this has also opened up as well just the flaws and the total farce of the legal system and how these operations have been managed. All that land at Lee Point was Crown land that they just literally handed over to Defence Australia. And as blackfellas who are trying to look at like, well, how do we obtain land and how do we do that in a legal way, it just shows how unfair that is, that Crown land can sometimes literally just be given to people. No money, no anything, if the government sees that it's a worthy cause. And I know that for a lot of us, we see all these Crown land areas everywhere, and we're kind of like, can't we just, like, can we not have like IPAs over that? Can we not, like, there's this real disconnect and dissonance, I find, and the more that you're fighting in these legal battles against like Defence Australia, as we have been doing for over 50 years, you just realise how much of a farce it really all is. The Lee Point fight has really been a full circle moment in tying together what our Victor started in the 70s and what we're continuing on today. My Gurang there in the blue dress, Gurang Lorraine Williams, that is our Victor's daughter, his youngest daughter. And she is she was meant to be here actually, but she couldn't make it. But she is our main language speaker as well, and the one who's been working for the last 20 years to try and get our dictionary together. We don't have our orthography, and as we know, it's just a matter of time before these old people pass, and we're trying to really get that information. But looking at the weight of the struggles that she and Narang have had to carry, and my Aling there too, where they're fighting these battles to protect our country, because we know that you need your language and your land together in order for both of them to be strong. And the knowledge you get from your language helps you to look after and manage your country, and then your country helps you make your language stronger. And just seeing the toll that this has taken on Gurang and Narang who have been fighting these legal battles since, like, Gulumoerrgin has been fighting in the Canby land claims. She started giving evidence when she was 18. Like, our people and my family are so clever and are all lawyers without having their degrees in it, but are also highly skilled culturally with their cultural knowledge and their linguistic knowledge as well. I'm very grateful to come from these people and to be family with them. But we are at a stage right now with the current state of the CLP where we're feeling really disempowered. And I was talking to Aladik about, this presentation about resistance. How do I explain that right now I feel like we have just kind of fallen over and that things are feeling really heavy and a bit hopeless with the state of Leah Finocchiaro in government for the next couple of years, and she's already handed down some really awful legislations that have literally been killing our people in our country, and that our own people are now the ones who are carrying out that harm as the tools, right, of the colony and as the soldiers of the colony. So we always talk about this like timeline difference between like the East Coast and down south and where things are at in the NT. And I don't know what time period this is equivalent to back home to where things have been at here, but maybe it's like after the AAPA kind of fell off or something, but like there's this state of like stagnancy and apathy I feel in my community back home that we're really fighting against, which is why I wanted to come and share this story of where we're at and what's happening on the ground back home, to just be really open and vulnerable about how it feels to be in a place right now where it's really hard to see how we're going to get out of it and how we get through, like how are we going to make sure that our language stays strong and we still have our country, and why it's so important that we sit with other Indigenous peoples who have been through this for longer to be like, oh, we're going to be fine, but right now it's really heavy and it's really hard. And so I get back to thinking about like these practices that we have carried on in our family forever and that we will continue to do. This is us camping at Twofolla Creek. This is more near the women's area. This is how we camp in the dry season, which is this time of year right now. We don't need a tent or anything, we just take a mosquito net. And the water's just beyond that dry grass just there, and there's all mangroves behind where that photo was taken. And these are the places that we're trying to protect from development by Defence Australia. And these are the places where we still have our ceremonies and where we're still going through our laws and our rules. My dad standing there on the top right is holding our flag, and you can't see the whole banner, but there's a Danggalaba weaving through there, and it says our tribe and our clan. And it really took me back to thinking about what Aladik had said to me, which is, resistance comes in waves, and they're going to ebb and flow. And ultimately my people were the Danggalaba, were the crocodile. And the Danggalaba is the apex predator because it sits and waits under the waves for the perfect time to strike. And Danggalaba, they watch for patterns. They'll sit for a whole month and just watch the same prey walk down the beach, and they'll wait and wait until they come closer and closer to the shore. And they're apex predators because they only strike if they know they're going to get it. And we're just going to keep sitting under those lapping waves for now until we get what we need within ourselves to feel strong enough to make sure that we can fight back with a chance where we actually can get substantial rights for our people, to make sure that our languages are strong, and to make sure that we can take our kids dragnet fishing, to take their grandkids dragnet fishing, and to make sure that those ceremonies and practices keep on going. So, thank you.
We've got a substitute land rules.
Yeah, I think Dr. Greenwarding is outside
Yeah.
on the phone, but we can do like 5 minutes of questions.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Thank you for that presentation. I moved to Darwin after the cyclone and got there, and I actually went along and supported Brother Tippy at a few of these protests, because I was a young student at the community college those days, and played with brothers and mixed with the mob or your family.
Brothers is the only team that anyone should play for.
And I heard some of that history, but it was really nice to hear the full scope of it from your family's perspective. And I'd just like to thank you for that, because I think it's a great history. And I think more of our mob around the country should know how long you mob have been fighting that defence and that Darwin situation. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to show appreciation for your stories. It's a really nice reminder, reading those declarations as well. I did a bit of image several months walking, and this water bottle was in front of me. It was full bottle of knowledge and family, and being able to see you connect and share stories through that far is really beautiful energy to receive.
I think one of my favourite parts as well, when I was like going back through, because I've heard all these stories my whole life, so I was like, I'm just going to share them, but like get more evidence to back it up. But one of my favourite things was realising how united the movements were, and like from such vast areas as well. So there was actually a huge conference, and maybe Uncle Gary Williams want to talk about this, but they had a big conference, I can't remember when exactly it was. 1973 at Bagot, with like 200 people in attendance, all from across Australia. And I didn't put a photo up of Bagot, and so maybe this won't make sense, but Bagot is basically like a town camp in the middle of Darwin where only blackfellas live. And that is the town camp that our Victor managed, so he was in charge of like all the repairs of that place, and they used to have their own, like used to have its own like school and its own veggie gardens, and was really thriving. There is still a health, like the Aboriginal Health Clinic is in there now, but they also used to have these incredible parades where like old Victor and all the men would make these incredible floats, and everyone would dance and celebrate. This was all for May Day as well, so like showing that relationship between like the blackfellow movements and the unions in those early days, and how strong all of that was. And it was really heartening for me, I think, because there is so much of this divide of like the north and the south, and there's like real reasons for that, there's definitely distinctions, but also that petition that we put forward was for all blackfellas in Australia, and that shows just that unity and respect for one another, regardless of the state of our languages or our cultures, or whether we have ceremonies or whatever. We still understand, and that demonstrates that that real deep respect for each other.
Is there some way that we can see and share that declaration?
Yeah. It's also there's a few things on it online as well. You can look up the Larrakia petition, and it will come up, and you can actually go through the archives. And read all the signatures that are on there as well. So, but I'm also happy to somehow share that with Grey Morning because that might be easier. I can just compile all of that. And same with all the treaty stuff and everything in those maps. I'm happy to put that presentation together and share that.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you for speaking. I think the next speaker is Raymond Kelly.